Transportation and storage of pesticides. As a pest control operator, you will have to purchase, transport, and store chemicals in order for you to do your job. This video will discuss what the transportation and storage of pesticides entail. Transportation of pesticides. Once pesticides have been purchased, the new owner becomes responsible for the safe transportation thereof, as well as the risks associated with the transportation of these products. Failure to adequately transport pesticides can result in accidental personal injury, as well as environmental damage. This can in turn lead to expensive site cleanup costs, lost time due to injuries, increased insurance rates, bad reputation, and costly lawsuit defenses. How can I safely transport pesticides? Always remember that prevention is better than cure. Before loading pesticides into the vehicle, ensure that the vehicle is suitable for transporting pesticides. A suitable pesticide transportation vehicle must physically separate the pesticides from the driver. This means that there's an airtight partition between the seating area and the load carrying area of the vehicle. Another important feature is that the vehicle should be constructed in a way to contain any leaks or spills. Under no circumstances should any pesticide be carried in the passenger compartment of a vehicle. When transporting pesticides, the following should be taken into consideration. Keep a change of clean clothes to change into in case of contamination in the driver's cabin, as well as personal protective equipment to prevent contact with pesticides. Pest control equipment and pesticides carried on the vehicle should not be in contact with porous surfaces. The internal and external surfaces of the vehicle, as well as the surfaces of pesticide containers and spray equipment, should be kept free of pesticide contamination. Do not leave your loaded vehicle unlocked and unattended. Protect the load from the weather. Secure, leak-proof chests suitable for transporting pesticides are available, and it is recommended that you use one if you are carrying small quantities of pesticides. Before loading pesticides into a vehicle, each container should be inspected to confirm that they are not leaking or contaminated with pesticide, that all caps are tightly closed and properly sealed, and that labels are attached and legible. A current material safety data sheet should also accompany each pesticide during transport. Secure the load and limit its movement. Always transport pesticides in their original containers and protect them from being crushed, torn, or punctured during transport. Gas cylinders should be restrained, and those of a liquefied gas kept in an upright position. Gas cylinders should not be transported or kept inside a vehicle without adequate cross-flow ventilation. Cylinders must not be carried externally to the vehicle. This means outside the frame of the chassis work. Handheld equipment should be transported empty when possible to avoid the risk of spillage. If pesticide must be transported in the equipment used to apply it, ensure that there are no leaks or spills. Do not transport fertilizer, medicines, clothing, or food with pesticides. Never allow unauthorized persons or pets to ride in company vehicles, especially ones that transport pesticides. Never allow smoking in company vehicles that transport pesticides. All operators that transport pesticides should be trained in pesticide spill cleanup procedures. If spillage occurs, immediate action should be taken to limit damage. If a fire breaks out at the site of an accident involving a vehicle carrying pesticides, call the fire brigade as well as the police. You should give them the relevant information about the type and amount of pesticide involved. Consult the pesticide manufacturer or fire authority for advice on suitable fire extinguishers. Any runoff from putting out the fire could contain high levels of pesticides and could be dangerous and polluting as a spillage. Storage of pesticides. Once you have transported your pesticide safely, it will have to be stored. As with transportation, there are certain pesticide storage practices that will have to be complied with. Why is compliance with pesticide storage practices required? Not only will correct storage prolong the shelf life, it also helps protect people and animals from injury and possible death. Proper storage decreases chances for contamination of the environment in which it is stored. How do I know what risks are associated with the pesticides that I have to store? With any pesticide, there are always storage risks that relate to emergencies such as fires, spillage, accidental exposure, inhalation, or ingestion. The first risk factor to consider when assessing the risk associated with storing a pesticide is the quantity that needs to be stored. Regardless of the quantity of pesticides, it is recommended to have a designated storage area. This becomes mandatory when storing more than 100 kilograms or liters of pesticide. If the quantity of the pesticide to be stored is more than 250 kilograms, then a check must be done to determine if a dangerous goods storage license is required, or if there are any other special conditions to be complied with. This can be determined by studying the material safety data sheet and contacting the product manufacturer. Where must I store my pesticides? Once you know the quantities and special considerations, you can move on to selecting a proper storage area. If the quantity is less than 100 kilograms and is not in gas form, the storage area can be a metal cabinet. If the quantity is more than 100 kilograms, a segregated storage area or purpose-built store is recommended. Once again, refer to the material safety data sheet when considering the storage location and the design of the storage area. When selecting a facility for the storage of pesticides, make use of the following checklist. Location: not near residential housing. Not near rivers, dams, or any other body of water that can be contaminated. Not near buildings where feed, fodder, fuel, and other flammable materials are stored. The floor. The floor is watertight and constructed from screeded concrete. Unscreeded concrete, earth, bitumen, PVC, timber, or any other porous material is unacceptable. Walls. Ensure that the walls are made of bricks or concrete blocks. Ensure that there is adequate ventilation. Roof. The roof must not leak and be insulated to maintain a reasonable temperature. The roof must be fitted with vents to allow the escape of hot air. Doors. Steel doors with an effective locking mechanism is recommended. Windows. The window should allow enough light to make the reading of labels easy. Ensure that there is adequate warning signage placed inside as well as outside the pesticide storage facility. Now that you know the quantity of pesticide as well as any other special considerations, the next step is assessing the pesticide containers. What must I consider when assessing pesticide containers for storage? Ensure that the pesticides are stored in their original containers. Check the pesticide containers regularly. If the original container is damaged, the contents must be placed in another correctly labeled container. Ensure that the containers are kept closed whilst in storage. Never use soft drink bottles or food containers to store pesticides. Ensure that all original labels remain legible and on the container. Ensure that there is adequate lighting to enable the reading of the labels. After checking the pesticide containers, what other measures must be taken for adequate storage? Keep a list of the pesticides stored, as well as their locations in the storage facility. Only store pesticides necessary for immediate use and only store pesticides in the storage facility. No household items or foodstuffs may be allowed in the storage area. Do not store pesticides directly on the ground, but rather on shelves or pallets. Do not store liquids above solids. Consider fire risks and avoid having sources of ignition in the storage area. Be prepared for an emergency. How can I be prepared for emergencies? Compile a written emergency plan that must be available for reference on site. Train staff at the facility to deal with emergencies and cleanup procedures. Keep personal protective equipment, cleanup equipment, as well as the necessary first aid kits on site and available for immediate use. The Poisons Information Center's number should be clearly displayed throughout the store for quick reference in case of a serious pesticide exposure. Thank you for watching.